Good morning, or top of the morning to you. Welcome back to another Scuttlebutt with Ivy's Family Factotum. So I was going to do just a little bit of story time. I actually have a Navy story that I will share. But before we get to that, so we actually thought that we had a loss on the homestead. And going through, so all the chickens, right? So mom and dad, last time that they were down in Texas, which dad's down there now, and been looking at goats. I was like, Dad, we don't have the infrastructure up yet for that stuff. Stop bringing stuff back when we don't have infrastructure. That's what happened. They did that with these chickens, and we did not have the infrastructure. So none of those chickens were sexed whenever he brought them back, and it turned out that three of them were roosters. Well, the type of chicken they are, well, the blonde ones, so the mom chicken, which we're now naming Dolly, because for one, she's kind of short, blonde, and actually has a pretty good size, if you know what I mean, right? So her name is Dolly. And then the other blonde, which is the daughter from her, has really long legs, also blonde. So her name is Barbie. Well, the three male chickens, right? Those all turned out. So that breed of chicken is called a Nankin Bantam, right? And they go for some pretty decent money. And the male chickens, however, are utilized a lot down in South Texas or Mexico area for fighting. That they're used a lot as fighting roosters, and that they're known for that. And I've even told Dad, I was like, Dad, we do not need that here on the property. We don't need roosters, right? Is if we're going to try to keep any type of roosters, we need to get, I would like to have chickens. Gladys would like to have chickens that are more docile. They don't want to attack anybody coming. They don't want to attack other chickens within the flock. All those things. So it turns out that two of those roosters, because as of right now, one of those roosters is inside the main coop with Max. Right, Max is our Brahma. Brahmas are normally pretty chill, right? They keep the peace within the flock as well. And as of right now, the other rooster that's in the main flock that's inside the coop, right? He doesn't try to do anything with Max because Max will put him in his place. Well, Max was also the peacekeeper whenever everybody was out free ranging before we had the coop built. But the problem with that is once we got these other hens in the main gathering of chickens, free ranging, they would start separating themselves. Well, he was having to try to run back and forth, trying to keep the peace, and it wasn't working out, right? So it was much easier to get them all into the run, get them all into the coop once all that was done. Excuse me. And but we did not want to because we had noticed before that run was finished that those other two roosters were having other issues, right, with the rooster we call Wee Man. And you can tell that they had different roosters, right? So because the mother hen is the mom of all of those chickens. Okay, so Barbie, the other two roosters, and Wee Man, right? They're all the sons or daughters of the mother hen that we're calling Dolly. Okay. So with that being said, and you can tell that they're different because they have different combs. Some of the coloring is kind of the same, but we had noticed that the one that Wee Man, the one that has more of like a straight comb that comes up like this and is big, right? And it just stands up and it fans out, is a different type of rooster than the other two that look the same, because their thing up on top, I can't even think of what it's called right now, but that it's what helps regulate their temperature and all those things, right? But they're just more curled over, but one was straight and the other one was kind of laid down. But they're the same, right? They came from the same rooster. Wee Man did not. He's a completely different type of chicken, even though they all had the same mom. So they're more of like a half breed. They're Nankins, and then whatever else gaming chicken was with them, right? So with that being said, we thought we took a loss to the flock, that those two that kind of looked the same were really fighting with each other. And one of them's called Rocky, the other one was called Elvis, right? Because mom just loves him to death. But we've already told him, and even told dad, that, hey, for one, we don't need this many roosters here. If you have a rooster, normally it goes to freezer camp, right? So obviously they were fighting a lot yesterday. Mom had found one of them, the one that we call Elvis, right? Found him laying down, beat up pretty bad, and was able to separate them. And then later that evening, I was out working on the gate project. She let them back out again, and obviously they started fighting once again. Well, we thought that Elvis had bit the bucket, that he was gone. So, and this is one of the biggest reasons, right, that you don't name chickens if you know that they're going to be going to freezer camp, right? Normally, if you're raising any type of animals for meat production or things like that, they just would get, especially if you're going to be doing a breeding process. So if you're keeping certain birds strictly to have them hatch eggs for meat production, right? They wouldn't. I mean, those, I guess you could name, because you're not technically killing them, but you're using them. But one of the things that my pawpaw had taught me was, you assign them a number, right? If you already know that they're going to be having a fate at some point, you don't name them, because you name them, now they're more of a pet, right? And it's a little harder on the family, right? Me personally, Gladys personally, naming them or not, we know a chicken is a chicken, and at some point they're going to meet their fate, right? They're going to go to freezer camp. If they're no longer producing eggs, or they're no longer producing the things that we need them to, they're going to freezer camp, named or not. So, but other folks out there, right, might have a little issue with that. So, yeah. But we thought we had lost the rooster and that a hawk had taken it away. But what had turned out was, he actually, since Rocky, the one that was here, was winning those fights, he basically claimed this area over here, because those two are free range, right? We don't have them inside the coop. So he kind of claimed this area over here. So Elvis took off to the other side of the creek, right? So now they had a creek barrier between them. Well, mom, whenever she went to go get the mail this morning, had figured out that he was still alive and that she could hear him. Because we looked, for a good long while last night, and just couldn't find him, couldn't hear him, couldn't do nothing. So like, well, we took a loss. So, but as of this morning, we did find out that he's still alive, and he was just on the other side of the property. So yeah, there's that. But long story short on that one is, we've already called dad, because technically they're dad's roosters. We say, hey, this is what's going on. They need to go. So both of them more than likely are going to freezer camp, because we're not going to deal with having roosters on the property that can possibly hurt other animals, like giggles, possibly the dogs, I don't know, or the kids, people coming to visit. So we're like, nope, they're going away. But on a good note to that is, we do have, Barbie is actually broody right now, and she's sitting on a few eggs. So we'll see what happens with that. And the egg she's sitting on is actually from the gray hens. So it would be a mixture of those hens and Max. So, and I don't even know what their breed is. I'm gonna have to double check with Liz to find out because that's who we got them from. But yeah, anyway, story time. So Navy story time, and this video is actually going to go a little bit longer because of that. I took a long time to talk about chickens, but with that being said, I actually had one of the things that really scared me, and this was actually at my first command of the Navy, or what scared me about walking, not necessarily at dark, but is darker. Well, my shop that I had to go to, and this is on LPD, so LPD 4, the the USS Austin. Sorry, I was on the Cleveland temporarily. That's LPD 7, but on the Austin. So to get to the shop, you had to walk out onto the forecastle, which is the very, very front part of the ship, the bow of the ship, right? And then you had to kind of do a 180, go up a ladder to the gun deck area up in the front. You're passing the CWIS gun that I worked on, and then you're going straight into the shop. So during that time, whenever I first got there, majority of your deck was just painted, right? And then you had a strip that was roughly 2 feet wide that was non-skid that you'd walk on as kind of like a little walking trail. And that helps with, your boots not slipping on a deck whenever it got saltwater spray or water on it, right? Well, during storms or whatnot, right, a lot of times they would secure the weather deck. You weren't allowed to go outside. But for us, we still had permission because we had to go to our shop every so often because we had a saltwater cooling system with filters and things. So if the filters got clogged for whatever reason, we had to go in there and do that maintenance to unclog those filters, because it would send an alarm, right, to different people, to the DC shop. It would send alarms to different places, and they would see that, they call us and be like, hey, you need to go take care of this. Or a lot of times we would just go up there regardless because it was the only way to get to our shop, and we like to go hang out up there, watch TV or whatnot. So anyway, it was one of the times that we had a storm, and the deck was wet, and I was going up there. So we had a wind cutting across the deck, basically from starboard to port, so right side to left side. And our door, whenever you opened it, was hinges on the right, and you had to open it as the wind was cutting across, right? So that wind would want to grab the door and it'd want to yank it open really quickly. Well, that happened to me whenever I was going up there, and it caused me to step off of that non-skid onto the painted portion of the deck, which was wet thoroughly, and the ship was rocking, right? Well, whenever that happened, both my feet went whoop, and I just started going that way towards the side of the ship. So it took me, and I was still holding on to the door when it happened. So obviously the wind caused the door to fling, and it flung me and caused me to do almost a 180 in the air because of that door. And the guys that was in the shop, well, I think only one guy was in the shop, and it's Ford, Mike Ford. And he said that all he's seen whenever the door flung open was 2 feet up in the air going to the side. And he just started busting out laughing. He thought it was funny. Well, the bad part about that is it was flinging me basically to the side of the ship. And that portion of our ship where it was, because we had like a little half wall that went around the CWIS mount. And then there was handrails that went, because we had a portion of the ship, and you can look online, right, as LPD 4, the USS Austin, on the port side, and you can see there was a piece of metal that kind of came down at a curve, right, and then it had this little opening It almost was kind of shaped like a triangle, but it only had 2 handrails. It should have had 3 because it left a pretty good sized opening down towards the bottom. And that's right where I was going. And I was sliding across the deck, and there was like a little bit of a lip right down at the bottom to where that kind of caught my shoulder a little bit, but it's still, I had enough force to where I was going through that opening, and I had to put my hand up as I was going and kind of grabbed it with my wrist, right? Not in my hand. I grabbed it with my wrist, and I was hanging off the side of the ship halfway and stopped myself from going completely overboard. And everything happened like within seconds of, because I only had to cover roughly an 8-foot area, and it flung me quick, right? Because we had super high winds. Like I said, I mean, they were up probably 50, 60 mile an hour winds. And but yeah, that was the first major scare that I had. And I said first, right? There's other things that had happened later in my career, but that was the first major scare I ever had on any of the ships that I was on out to sea. And with it being dark, right, the chances of you being found going overboard with no lights on or no nothing is pretty slim to none. So, yeah. But I made it. I saved myself, and I was able to get up, soaking wet, head to toe, get into the shop, and Ford thoroughly laughing at me as I was telling him what happened, because he only saw the feet. So yeah, that's it. That's story time. That's one of the things that happened to me. Obviously, it does affect you mentally. It does affect you physically, right? Because I landed on my back and all those things, and that's just one of those things. You know, of, hey, that's why I've claimed different things on my yeah. But all right, so that's what we got for you. We definitely appreciate y'all for following in. Chickens are live for today. We're probably going to process them later, and then definitely get out and check out. We have another video coming out tomorrow on the main channel for the gate. So it's going to be part 2 of the gate build. We're still doing some preparatory type work and getting things done before we can get started on the actual physical gate itself. But part 3, I'm actually going to do a box opening of the product that we're getting to install. And then it's probably going to be around pretty close to part 5, probably. Like I said, it's going to be multiple parts. Hopefully by the time we get to about part 5 of the build, is where I will install it. But like I said, I still have to get some more materials and such, and go get this cashed in. Like I said, Uncle Sam stuck it to us. So yeah, we got like $4,000 less than what we did last year. Horrible, I know. But all right, we thank y'all. So definitely get out there, thank a veteran with every chance you get, not only on Veterans Day, and we'll see you on our next one. Later, y'all.